Hi grade 8s, it's Mr. Miller, and this is an introductory video for chapter 10, which is all about solving linear equations. Now before I get to what a linear equation is and how do we solve them, I want to just review an exploration we went into in class and talk about how that's a bridge between the kind of math we've been doing in the first part of the course, which was a lot of numerical stuff, going into this now more abstract kind of math, with it being algebra. A lot of symbolic math is going to be involved, and so the exploration kind of helps you to connect those two things and make a little bit of a smooth transition. So let's take a look at those explorations. The exploration that we did in class started off with me telling you to take out a piece of paper and to pick 4 mystery numbers. They should have been integers, which means can be numbers like 1, 2, 3. 0 is acceptable, even -1, -2, -3. But I encouraged you to choose some small numbers in magnitude and to keep them to yourself, not to write them down. From there, you were supposed to take each one of your mystery numbers and make an equation out of it, like the 4 that I made up, and they looked like this. So first of all, my first mystery number, which I didn't tell anyone what it was, but I added a certain amount to it. I added 1 to it, and I came up with an answer of 2. Then for my second mystery number, I chose to subtract a certain amount. I subtracted 4 from it, and that gave me 3. And my third mystery number, I took that, multiplied it by 5, and I ended up with 20. My fourth mystery number, I divided it by 6, and what I came up with was 3. So you were supposed to pick 4 different mystery numbers, and you were supposed to, in each case, you're supposed to add a certain amount to the first one, you're supposed to subtract a certain amount from the second one, you're supposed to multiply by a certain amount with your third one, and then your fourth one, you're supposed to divide by something and calculate what each of those was equal to. So, I mean, you might be looking at my mystery numbers and you might know exactly what they are already. That's awesome. Where we were supposed to go from here was this. You're supposed to take your 4 equations that you've made, pass them on to a partner, and try to have your partner guess what each one of your mystery numbers are. And so a lot of people might be looking at mine and saying, oh, I know what this is. It's 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And you're absolutely right. But how is it that you know when you have the right answer, the right mystery number? And so in that first case, what you can do is you can replace that empty box that we had with what you think is the correct answer. So we think it's 1. How do we know it's the right number? Well, when you add 1 plus 1, you get 2. And that's what we're supposed to get. So that's how you know you have the right number. You can do the same thing with the others. You might be looking at the second equation I had. What's the number that when you subtract 4 from it, you get 3? I think probably everybody knows that it's 7, but let's check it out. 7 minus 4, oh yeah, that is 3. You might be looking at my third equation. What is the number that when you multiply it by 5, you get 20? Well, I know what that is. It's 4, right? Of course, 4 times 5 is equal to 20. That's how you know you have the right mystery number. And the last one, what is that mystery number that when I divide it by 6, I get 3? You might be saying, I know exactly what it is. It's 18. 18 divided by 6 is equal to 3. And that's how you can verify that you have the right numbers. Guess what? You've just solved 4 equations. So, when you see them this way, this is the kind of work that I'm sure you've done work like this in elementary school, and it's really numerical, but it is basically algebra. It is solving equations. So although you might think of algebra as being this really abstract thing, remember that in the end you're just trying to figure out what is that mystery number that when you add, subtract, multiply, or divide by a certain amount, you get what you have on the right-hand side. So that's, I think, a good way to start off connecting it to some exercises that I'm sure that you've done in elementary school. So now let's get into some definitions. talking about what is a linear equation. So first of all, a linear equation is an equation, go figure. It's a mathematical statement with an equals in it. And we usually call that the middle of the equation. So for example, I had an equation which was some number, some mystery number times 5 equals 20. We figured out that number was 4, but anyways, and it's got an equals in it. There's the equals sign. So secondly, a linear equation has at least one mystery number. And in this case, we represented that mystery number by an empty box. Now in algebra, which is the kind of math that we use in solving linear equations, a mystery number is not usually represented by an empty box. We usually have a letter in its place. So it would look like this, 5x equals 20. So in other words, instead of having this empty box here, we have some kind of a letter. It could be x, it could be n, it could be L, it could be whatever. So as long as it's some letter. And you notice that this 5 times x, I didn't actually write the multiplication sign in between as I had done up here. And that's very commonplace in algebra. This is a shorthand notation for 5 times some mystery number. And it's equal to 20. So this is a linear equation. Now a mystery number is, we don't usually call it a mystery number, we usually call it an unknown or a variable. In Math 8, we solve linear equations that only have a single variable. So you notice that my equation only has one letter in it. It doesn't have an x and a y or a z or a w or any other letters, just a single letter x. And a linear equation is an equation where the variable is, or if you had multiple variables, only raised to the exponent 1. So let's look carefully at this equation, okay? So when we say it's got to be raised to the exponent 1, you notice that the 5x is raised to the exponent 1. So that's how we know that this is a linear equation. I'm giving it a little green check mark to indicate it is a linear equation. So compare that with some others, such as 5x squared equals 20. Well, because it's raised to the exponent 2, that means that this is not a linear equation, okay? It's okay to square the 5. 5 times 5 is 25. That's just another number, but you can't square the variable x. Now how about this next one, 5 divided by x equals 20? Well, this is not a linear equation either, because when you're dividing by a variable, this is no longer linear. Okay, so that's not a linear equation either. What about 5 times the square root of x? Well, this is not allowed either. The square root of x, this means we do not have a linear equation. So I just wanted to take a moment to talk about some other examples and just show you some things that aren't linear equations, just so we're clear. All right, so moving on. Why linear equations? So first of all, linear equations are called linear equations because when either side of the equation is graphed, it forms a straight line. So check this out. Here, what I've done is I've graphed the 5x. Remember we're looking at 5x equals 20? Well, if we graph y equals 5x, then that makes a straight line. And if we graph y equals 20, this also makes a straight line. It's a horizontal line. Second part of why linear equations, why do we even study them? Well, linear equations are studied because linear relationships are very commonly seen in everyday life. So this area of math is really going to help us to understand those. So for example, a taxi cab fare can be calculated at least approximately using an expression like this, where we're going to see that we're going to be using the variable x to represent the number of kilometers that's driven by the taxi cab. The cab fare is $3.30 plus $1.90 per kilometer times the number of kilometers, which again we're saying is x. And notice how that again makes a nice straight line. That means straight line, it's linear. And so this is a real life example that's modeled by a linear equation. That's the end of the introductory video. We're going on to lesson 10.1 from here. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of background information about linear equations before we get started. And thanks for watching. have yourselves a great day.